Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Section's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV. A very special presentation this Thursday night in the Americas, Friday morning here in Australia. It's round 2 of the Geodesic Omologato Championship from the Nürburgring. Really looking forward to this one. We saw a great opening round of the season at Watkins Glen 2 weeks ago. Marcus Deck, the winner of the prototype class, and Dakota Fripp winning in GT. And guess what? Looks like they're both on provisional pole for their classes. Let's take a look at what happened in the last round as we take a look at the start. I'm Reese Gardner, David Haynes joining me in the commentary box. David, it was a bit of drama at turn 1 here with the geodesic car of Tyson Meyer making contact in turn 1, and also a crazy start in the GTs as well. It was a very tightly contested class.
I mean, you just got to look at how many cars there were in GT as well to know that it was going to be very, very hotly contested. Not that prototype wasn't, but the more cars you throw in a class, obviously, the more fireworks you are going to see. Here is one of the moves we saw. Easy to push wide there at the final corner of Watkins Glen, and that allowed a move to shape up down into turn 1.
Indeed it did, and the battle for third place in the prototypes was a geodesic sandwich. Graham Sanders, Tyson Meyer fighting with Adam Crane and working their way through the traffic. It was quite intense making their way through in this GT traffic, and there were quite a few near misses in this particular section of the race. It allowed Tyson Meyer to get a run on Graham Sanders there in the prototypes and the number 25, and almost getting by in turn 1. You see they made their way past Adam Crane there in the red prototype, and Graham Sanders could not get it done through the S's thanks to this encounter with a sister car in the GT class, and that allowed Tyson Meyer to slip through.
And of course, the slipstream was a big deal at Watkins Glen. Won't be such a big deal this week, but you saw just how much speed and opportunity it gave some drivers to slingshot down towards the bus stop and make a position. The traffic, which you can see is so thick in these highlights, is going to be another thing to look out for here at the Nürburgring.
Yes, indeed, and here was a bit of a problem for Caden Bin. He was fighting for the lead with Dakota Fripp, but that incident at the final turn, just catching the grass on the left-hand side, took him out of contention for the race win. Poor Caden Bin, he was quite the competitor last round. Hopefully he'll repeat that this time. The driver of Johan Boysen in the Team Tortuga BMW, one of the stars of the late stages of the race. He had the freshest tyres out of everyone, one of the last GT cars to pit, and he really took advantage of that.
Yep, even a season ago, he was a bit of a wizard with the fuel, a bit of a wizard with the strategy, but in prototype, Marcus Deck could not be denied. He was the winner, and he's back again this week to try and defend it, to try and take it 2 from 2 in the brand new prototype class.
Indeed, he's already qualified 4 tenths ahead of his nearest rival for pole position, and Dakota Fripp was the one who took victory in the GT3 class. A bit marginal on fuel was the Vendaval driver, but he managed to make it work and brought home a dominant GT class victory. So that basically means that the standings are what the results were from the first race. And now we can move on to the Nürburgring, and we can see how the drivers have stacked up. Let's take a look at where the track is in the south of Germany, or the west of Germany, to be more precise, in the Rhine River region. Beautiful sea of green in this part of Germany, and a very historic track, the Nürburgring. We're using the GP circuit. You see the Nordschleife snaking away up to the north there, but this is the layout we're going to be using, David. We've got the Blancpain and World Endurance Championship layout, which uses the original faster version of the chicane at the end of the lap.
I always call it the sports car GP circuit. Sort of that's what it is. Follows the GP layout, except with the sports car chicane in the end, which is fine, because that is quite a challenge still by itself to stab on the brake, grab a downshift or two, and try to flick over the crest of the hill quickly with a left, right, and then, of course, into that final corner that sets up for run down the pit straight into that really, really tight first hairpin, where I think we're going to see a lot of moves try to happen.
Yes, indeed. There's quite a few overtaking opportunities at this Nürburgring GP circuit. It's been around since the early 1980s, opened in 1983 when the Nordschleife was deemed too unsafe for higher level racing. Well, the qualifying session is over for both classes, and I think it's going to be an opportune time to check out the pole laps for our two classes here. And Marcus Deck putting it on pole in the prototype class, setting a 1 minute 41.839. His closest rival is Graham Sanders in the number 24 geodesic machine with a 1 minute 42.271. I can't wait to see how he managed to do that. We're bringing it up in just a moment here. And Marcus Deck's lap starting earlier on the previous lap of his. Very tight section in this Mercedes arena at the Nürburgring. Got to be very careful getting on the throttle there. That might have been an off-track almost for Marcus Deck. But flowing down the hill towards these turns, I love this sequence of bends. Tightens up on exit. You've got to use all of the curb on the exit there, and then down at the southern hairpin, this is going to be one of the prime overtaking opportunities. If you can get a run on a GT car, or if you're getting a run on your nearest rival, you can certainly sneak one up the inside there, but then you come up to the Schumacher S, very fast section, and just flat out in the prototype class. They got enough downforce to cope with that, but it's a one-line affair. You can't make passes into there.
And you can see he's really working the hands on the wheel here as well in this qualifying lap, especially early on in his first and second gear, really managing the throttle, the traction control on these cars. But, well, you really don't want to get into them. And then just to bring out the lap, that looked like pretty quick in sixth gear.
Certainly did, and you see how fast the sports car chicane is as he brings it round the final turn to begin his pole lap. So, out of the last turn, Marcus Deck goes down the start-finish straight. You reach some of the highest speeds on the circuit down here on the run to turn one. Got to bring it into the right slightly. The track curves to the right, and then the very tight first gear hairpin to start off the lap. Just lifting off in second gear here, using the curb on the inside and rotating the car on exit through the Mercedes arena. Brings it in very tight for this left-hander. Tries to widen the right-hander as much as he can, and that was a nice smooth exit there for Marcus Deck. And then we go through the sequence of turns we were talking about earlier. Very fast entry through this right-hander, a bit banked through these turns. You can take advantage of the extra grip that provides you, and then out over the curb. Very fast exit for Marcus Deck, and let's see just how late he brakes for this. You've got to wait for that curb on the left-hand side to bring it in, and then late apex it, straighten out the exit as much as you possibly can for a good run through the Schumacher S. Build up the downforce. Try to avoid that curb on the left, because that will severely unsettle the car. And then through this left-right section, very quick turn this one in third gear. It's a bit quicker than it looks, and then a little bit tighter than it looks through here over the curb on the exit. Got to be careful of the off-track 1X off to the left-hand side, and then down this back stretch. We'll see how many passing moves are made into this fast chicane. Using all of the curb and then some is Marcus Deck, and then bringing it tight in second gear for the final turn up into third and fourth across the curb on the exit, and that is a lap of the Nürburgring in the Dallara P217, a minute 41.8, a dominant performance in qualifying from Marcus Deck.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw he put the car where he needed to. The one thing that did strike me a little bit by surprise was that far hairpin, south hairpin, as you said. a lot of the GT cars and other style of cars, you'll see people hug the inside all the way around or make it a double apex corner. He was not going for any of that. He was just setting up a really late apex out of that long corner.
Yeah, certainly was. And of course, the prototypes are not the only class competing today, and the GP circuit, a little bit far away from this beautiful castle, the village of Nürburg, inside the circuit. What did Dakota Frick do in the GT3 class? The number 109 coming off the high of the win at Watkins Glen. This was another great lap from Dakota. He managed to take pole by a bit over 0.2 of a second from Spencer Kostovich, but nonetheless, the GT class still looking very competitive. Let's see how the Audi took its way around the Nürburgring.
It looks similar, but a little bit slower. You've got to imagine again. He stays to the left here and then brings it to the downhill braking zone into the tightest corner on the lap as well. That's very often first gear in these kind of cars. That is a tough one there with the way the track drops away rapidly at the apex.
Yes, indeed, and he kept it nice and tight through turn 2 as well. Again, bringing it early for turn 3. And turning in just a tiny bit earlier, the GT cars depend a bit more on mechanical grip than the prototypes do. Braking late, you see that access road on the right-hand side as the braking point for that sequence of turns right there. And then over the curb on the exit once again. The Audi R8, one of the quicker cars in the GT3 class and handling the curbs really well. The Audi, we should mention, has been given an extra 5 kilograms of weight for this race. Previously, both the Audi and the Lamborghini had 5 kilos of ballast, but now the Audi has 10, so Dakota Fripp with a bit of extra ballast to carry around.
Yeah, indeed he does. Doesn't seem to have hurt too much on this qualifying lap, obviously, but in the race, it can be a different story with regards to tyre management, always a big talking point in endurance racing as well. So we'll see exactly how it looks in the race, but you're not going to say that Dakota Fripp doesn't have a good handle around the Audi, whether it's got an extra 5, 10 or even 20 kilos.
Yes, indeed, and very fast through the final chicane, using all of the curb on the exit there just to widen his entry into the final turn, and then out of the final turn across the line. Dakota Fripp, your pole man in the GT3 class. Looking forward to seeing if he can translate that into a race victory. So just a couple of minutes left then in this session before we go to the race. It's going to be 90 minutes as it was at Watkins Glen, and we can expect a similar race to round 1 in terms of race strategy as well. The GT cars last time out were able to complete it on 2 stops with maybe a splash at the end. So let's take a look here at one of the offerings from our sponsor, Omologato. This is the Weissach watch, inspired by the Nürburgring and inspired by Porsche as well. Really beautiful design, that one.
I believe that they and others call that color acid yellow. And you can see from the track map there, from all of the handles and the other little bits on the watch, sort of the signature color to that model. Of course, last week at Watkins Glen was the Watkins Glen watch from Omologato. So each round will be featuring a different model, I believe, from the lineup from Omologato. Do we still have that same code? Yes, we do. You go to the Omologato website, and if you use the promo code SPEED2020, you get a free silicone band with your purchase.
Indeed, you do. Just make sure to use that code when you check out on the Omologato website. I tell you what, very foggy conditions here at the Nürburgring. Starting in the morning, it's just getting to 7:35 in the morning in sim time. The sun is coming up, and of course the fog descending over the Eifel Mountains. It's going to make visibility quite difficult here at the Nürburgring. Let's take a look at the starting grid. There's only 9 prototypes here, but the class is undoubtedly going to be very competitive. It's Deck and Sanders on the front row there, with Adam Crane and Tyson Meyer sharing the second row. Connor Harrington and Zachary Herbler on row 3, 5th and 6th, with Andrew Berry and Hayden Gober 7th and 8th. Hayden Gober had a very tough one at Watkins Glen, as did Jason Gotter there in P9.
Your pole setter, as we saw for GT, is Dakota Fripp in the Audi R8, and then it's Spencer Kostovitz, Corey McLemore, Tristan Iglesias, Daniel Toville, Zach Plummer, Bo Rigger, John Derrick, Orson Morales, John Botifer, and Maxime Detilly for the first about 10 rows in GT.
Yes, indeed. Making their way back through the field. David Browning there, starting from P19, in the GT3 class. Searching down through as Nick McLaughlin and Mark Noski coming off 20th and 21st, with Mike Amade, Jay Steffi, the last 2 cars to set qualifying times. Interestingly, John Sedlak and Johan Boyson not setting a time in qualifying after a podium in round 1. That's going to be a tough one for Johan.
About that one, because we saw a little bit of late race contact for Johan Boyson on his way to the podium, his podium position. Well, the result was allowed to stand, but he was penalised rear of the grid for the subsequent round. That is this round. And so he, instead of being penalised rear to the grid, he just didn't set a qualifying time today. Functionally the same, didn't bother to go out and qualifying.
Well, there we go. That's the way it stacks up for Johan Boyson. Either way, it's going to be a very tough one from the back of the grid for the South African. As we only have 15 seconds left in the session, we're going to go for the race start very soon here on SimSpeed TV. And an interesting point to note, we're not going to be doing a full formation lap here. In the sim, the formation lap on the Nürburgring starts on the back stretch leading up to the final chicane. So the drivers are going to be getting off to a very quick start here.
Yeah, exactly, they will. Another thing to think about from 2 weeks ago is some changes to the LMP2 car. It's lost about 40 horsepower. The suspension has all been reworked a little bit. So that is a solid effort from Marcus Deck to turn all of his setups around on their head, work out again what he wants out of the car, and then still stick it on pole. Look at everyone in that prototype class with the double dive planes on the front. Compared to Watkins Glen, this is a little bit of a higher downforce layout. I'm seeing almost everyone, with just a very, very few exceptions, appear to have either a medium or a high downforce package on the car. We're not going to see quite so blistering straight line speeds, but it puts them quick through the corners. And I have a feeling that's also going to increase the slipstreaming a little bit if everyone's piled on a little more downforce.
Yes, indeed. The Nürburgring GP circuit obviously having a lot of fast corners, so you would need a medium to high downforce setup in the prototype if you want to work on pace. That might make things a bit difficult in traffic, though, because you won't have quite as much of a run on the GTs down the straights as you would at a place like Watkins Glen. But these prototype drivers were able to race very respectfully with the GT class at Watkins Glen, and I certainly expect more of the same here. It's going to be difficult, though, because especially in the first and second sectors of the track, it is very narrow. This back stretch is one of the wider sections of this Grand Prix circuit, and we got to remember those curbs always present, and they can upset your car quite a bit. There's very prominent curbs around this track.
GT cars seem to like them a little bit more than the prototypes do. We kind of saw that from qualifying coming out of the Mercedes arena. There's that right-hander where you want to open up the exit much as you can, and Dakota Fripp very much did, but Marcus Deck a little more cautious with the curbs. It's a more aerodynamically sensitive platform in the prototypes, of course.
And the prototype class is away behind the safety car. The GT class is going to leave a 10-second gap coming up to the final turn, and the starting zone is going to be just after the DRS sign on the start-finish straight. You'll be able to see a yellow line across the racetrack, and that's going to denote the start of the start zone. Dakota Fripp just pulling a bit ahead of the rest of the GT class as we focus on our prototypes through the final turn. The safety car is in, and Marcus Deck is going to lead away this prototype field in round 2 of the Geodesic Omologato Championship. Wait for the line, and away we go. It's a really good start there from Marcus Deck, going early, and Graham Sanders not able to respond. Adam Crane in his draft going for a move on the outside of turn 1. Sanders a bit earlier on the brakes, and Adam Crane positioning himself really well now on the inside for turn 2, on for second there in the prototypes as the GT class is now away. Fripp leads into turn 1 with Spencer Kostovich protecting second. Tristan Iglesias and Corey McElmore there side by side through turn 2.
Whole lot of 3 wide, and Maxime Tatilli got a little bit of a tap and then got straightened out again, so I wonder if there's going to be any damage on his McLaren. Up front though, Adam Crane, what a great lightning start out of him, leaving some of those Geodesic guys in his wake, but not all the way in his wake because they are still keeping the pressure on him as tyres warm up in these cars.
Yes, indeed. Have a look at the run down there, and oh no, that is the 186 there of Zach Plummer. He's had a bit of trouble on the exit of the Mercedes Arena in his Lamborghini. Plummer racing for Action Sim Sport last season, but changing to privateer for this one. Not a great start for him. Graham Sanders, though, under massive pressure from his teammate Tyson Meyer. Once the race starts to get going, Tyson really dials in the aggression, but probably not a chance of a move just yet. The 2 Geodesic cars, though, starting to gap the rest of the field. Connor Harrington is leading up the rest of the pack there, the final 5 cars in prototype, and the gap just seems too big to negate for now.
Exactly, so all clean so far in the prototype field as Marcus Deck gets away in the lead. In GT, though, has been certainly plenty of action. I saw from the helicopter shot a whole lot of 3 wide on the brakes down into this turn 1, where the key action zone appears to be, because it is just such a big braking zone. The downhill lengthens the braking distance as well and always tempts you into sending the move. But with a lot of time still left on the clock, you don't want to get involved in too much or penalised.
No, you certainly don't, as, oh, here we go. That's a pass down at turn 1. John Botifer and John Derrick side by side there. And Derrick having to back off using the tighter line through turn 1. An update on Johan Boyson, meanwhile. He's made up another position into turn 1, just passing Mark Noski in that pack we were taking a look at just before. Boyson starting to bring the charge, but that fight towards the back end of the GT field looking very close, I have to say, as Botifer starts to consolidate his position over Derek. Boyson looking very aggressive there, looking to make his way past Nick McLaughlin, taking the wide line into the right-hander, and McLaughlin got a bit crossed up there, so that's going to be another position for Johan Boyson down at the south end.
If you ever feel like no one listens to us, well, Team Tortuga have gone and tweaked that livery from 2 weeks ago. And I remember saying something about the nose, and they've done something about it. So, new livery for Team Tortuga has their emblem and their logo and their colours more prominent. And they've done a very, very interesting treatment to the front of the car. Someone needs to get BMW design onto that.
Yeah, it's a nice clean livery that Team Tortuga has indeed. Graham Sanders, though, in the prototype class, starting to come back at Adam Crane here, for second place. Very aggressive exit from the hairpin, but not able to take advantage for the time being. It seems that Crane is quite comfortable through the Mercedes arena. One thing we got to remember as well, the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit has slightly less grip than you would expect as it's on again between Botifer and Derrick. If you drive the full combined circuit, the GP and Nordschleife tracks, you'll notice that the Nordschleife has a bit more grip. So a bit slippery here on the Grand Prix circuit. The drivers have to be careful as Derrick gets up the inside again at turn 1, but Botifer carrying the momentum around the outside, able to protect into turn 2, and this is going to open up an attack here from Orson Meireles, the teammate there to John Derrick. War Turtle machine. No, my apologies, though. Getting the colors confused there.
Purple is in this season, apparently.
It is. It definitely is. There's quite a few purple and blue cars out there. Very similar liveries, but fortunately we've got a full season to get used to it. And my goodness, that fog is thick. You can barely see anything from the helicopter shots.
Yeah, and it's not just that it's a thick fog, it's a very interesting color in the morning with the sunrise as well. It is a little unsettling. GT action continues. Here's a flash of the headlights as Johan Boyson is going to have a look around the outside, I think. He's not being given anything for free from this back of the grid start. Now he's going to try to cut back underneath, potentially. This is the kind of fighting that, gosh, you qualify to try and avoid.
And Nelson Yester in the Ferrari making life very difficult for Johan Boyson through the Schumacher S. Stays ahead on the exit of that sequence. So Boyson's going to have to try a little bit harder there. We're going to go to an Omologato replay to see what happened here to the number 81 of Andrew Berry on the exit of the chicane. Oh my goodness, just losing it right through there. The Action Sim Sport prototype locking the rears. As we go back to live pictures, Boyson and Yester, they've sorted themselves out, it seems. Boyson getting by Yester at the chicane as we take a look at Marcus Deck making his way across the circuit. What about Bo Rigger for Geodesic Racing? Currently sitting outside, just inside the top 10, having to defend from Nichols Hayes. The BMW heading up quite the pack of cars here with Maxime Detilly being aggressive behind. Yeah,
it certainly is. Great in this championship to have so many of the different GT3 manufacturers present. Oh, this is a move and a half if you can pull it off. Hasn't been able to, but how often do you see anyone attempt that in the arena to go around the outside there?
Yeah, goodness me. Quite the aggressive move from Hayes, but didn't work out. It's actually given Bo Rigger a bit more of a gap as... Oh, whoa, that's a McLaren off. John Derrick, who we saw battling with John Botifer just earlier, having an off there at a very difficult part of the circuit. What on earth happened to him? It looks to me like a case of understeer. He got into the grass and spun.
The replay will tell the truth. You remember he was in the battle here of the Johns, and then just pushes wide onto the grass. And obviously, if there's a limited grip on the track, there is even less on that grass, which in this kind of weather conditions you'd have to imagine is icy or dewy. Or contact for Maxime Detilly, a different McLaren.
And where has that happened? That's the turn after the Schumacher X, turn 10. Just managing to get going again as one of the Geodesic Lamborghinis gets on by. Nelson Yester still facing a lot of pressure here in his Ferrari, and now he's got a two-pronged attack as Maxime Detilly tries his best to recover. Mark Noski trying on the inside at the chicane and just slipping back ahead of Detilly. Very close racing here, back in the pack, but of course Detilly out of position. He'll want to get back up there quick sharp as we check back in with the podium battle in the prototype class. Graham Sanders still sitting pretty behind Adam Crane, and I get the feeling that as this stint goes on, he might just dial up the aggression.
Very well could do. The other thing that's happened in this class with the slight horsepower reduction is actually it puts the stint length out a little bit longer. They burn less fuel. Sanders looking good through the high-speed corners there. So we might very well see these guys go longer than 40 minutes before we get the first pit stops from prototype. As for GT, there's a fuel restriction on those cars that ought to maybe make this a two-stop race. There's going to be a question mark there as well again.
Yeah, of course. We don't know all of the full details, and we're going to be discovering the reality of the situation as this race unfolds. That's why I love this series. The races are just the right length, and the balance of performance is very good between the GT class and the prototypes, of course, all driving the same car. So you know that you're going to be getting some equal competition here. But Graham Sanders falling back once again. Seems that the Mercedes arena is one of his weaker sections on that lap. Adam Crane just jetting ahead. The gap between them now 0.7 of a second as Tyson Meyer continues to try and eke out a podium position there in the Geodesic car. Seeing from race control that an incident is under review. That's Nicholas Hayes causing a collision.
I think that was the contact with Maxime Detilly. We didn't catch the start of it, but it was side by side with one of the cars around about the top 10 there.
Yeah, so we'll see there. And it's just been decided, racing incident, no further action. So Maxime Detilly might be a bit unhappy with that. No penalty for his rival, but that incident may very well have been an innocuous one. Traffic time, meanwhile, for the prototype class. Marcus Deck coming up on his first GT, Jay Steffi in the 147, and that's a pretty easy move there down the middle of the start-finish straight. But once they start getting to sequences of corners like this in the arena, it's going to be very difficult to try and stake out a piece of racetrack in the middle of a pack of GTs.
Especially with the prototypes in that high downforce package, they're looking to be quick through the corners and don't want to, give it up or be stuck behind a GT car in those sections. When the prototypes are all the way trimmed out, they can be a little more patient through the corners because they're a jet in the straight line. It's not quite the case today and on this layout, the way it looks like what we're seeing out of the prototypes.
Well, Adam Crane's already been given an advantage because Jay Steffi has made life a bit difficult for Meyer and Sanders as Boyson on the outside through the Schumacher S, making up another position now into P12. An excellent charge here from Johan, just making his way past Aaron Ackles and Garrett Thompson there. His next target is going to be Anthony Rossamano.
Certainly will be. All the chopping and changing we've seen in the GT field, your biggest movers sort of... well, it's not going to be Nelson Yester.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's a big problem there for Nelson. That's coming onto the back stretch, getting a Omologato replay, see what happened to him. It's been a tough start to this race for Nelson Yester. Coming through this fast section. He had one of the McLarens behind him and just a bit of understeer through the right-hander, and he got helped around, but by that point, looked like the spin was pretty much certain. You get a wheel into that gravel and there's no saving you. The Nürburgring, of course, a bit more of an old-school Grand Prix circuit. Still has grass and gravel right next to the racetrack.
In some places, not all of them.
Not all of them.
Exit of the arena comes to mind, for example. Here continues the traffic. Connor Harrington got caught by a couple seconds from Zachary Hubler on the most recent lap, and then they are about to get towards the very thick of the traffic as well, which is one of the times we see moves sometimes happen.
Yes, indeed. Harrington.
I need to know the name of the dog on that shark fin.
Yes, that would be some very helpful information as, Mario Norris taking his line as he is entitled to do. Connor Harrington getting held up slightly there. It's allowing Zachary Hubler to get back onto the back of him. And they'll be hoping that they get by this BMW into the hairpin, but Hubler's not going to be able to do it. That's Nick McLaughlin there, going wide to allow the prototypes through. And John Derrick and Mario Norris now together as a result of the prototypes passing through that pack. Derrick's going to try and extend the gap once more, but Connor Harrington getting on the inside of David Browning and then switches to the outside for the next turn. These two prototypes working their way through the GT pack wonderfully here, but a bit of a problem there for Zachary Hubler. It's going to be a problem later on, is that kink down the back straight. Zach Plummer having to change his line. Connor Harrington could not quite, Zachary Hubler couldn't quite get the run on him that he wanted.
Kink in the back straight is it's an interesting one. For a Formula 1 car, not a problem. For the prototypes, not a problem. It's Adam Crane. How far off the racing line has he gone from second? No longer second, now back into second somehow.
Goodness me. Taking advantage of the GT on the outside there. Graham Sanders had to back out, so what on earth happened to Crane at the first turn? It just looks to me like pretty simple error under brakes He caught the grass as the track went to the right. You see him get on the brakes there and get into the grass, and that's what sent him wide. Well, I think he'll be thanking his lucky stars that he was able to build the gap he did, because otherwise that would have been position lost fully.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was some positions gone for sure, but somehow got back onto the track, and Sanders and Meyer were still fighting each other a little bit behind him, weren't able to pick him off on that occasion. So lucky boy Adam Crane into turn 1 there.
Indeed. Makes his way past Bruno Carnero, and the gap is back now for Adam Crane, it seems. Sanders gets through and has the straight now to get into Adam Crane's slipstream. Through the kink they go. Orson Meireles just leaving Adam Crane the room on the outside, and Crane's actually having quite a good run through the traffic here. Tyson Meyer and Graham Sanders are not. They've been compromised on the exit of these turns, and they've got a sister car there in the GT class making life a bit difficult for them as well.
When I was going to make about that back straight kink is that for some of the cars like a GT3 car or a Porsche Cup car, it's difficult to go flat too wide through there. Prototypes, not a problem, but when they go for a prototype catching a GT cars aren't really going to want to change their line or give space.
Yeah, that's it. Again, the question of mechanical grip. The GT3 cars do produce quite a bit of downforce, but not as much as the prototypes, so through the fast turns they are quite grip limited. So through that kink, you're going to see the GTs stay on their line and not be willing to move for anything. John Botifer in the Geodesic Lamborghini starting to come under some pressure here from Orson Meireles. Meireles a tenth slower on the last lap, but the gap is there, and when the pit stops come round, there's certainly potential there for an advance. Dakota Fripp, meanwhile, not looking backwards at all in the lead of the GT class, with 3.5 second lead over Spencer Kostovich.
Yeah, so it is. It seems like it's those full send Lamborghinis, though, that are the one thing still pushing him along. They seem to be doing well early in the race here. This prototype going around the outside of the GT car. Okay, that looked clean enough.
It did. You can stay a little bit tight on the exit of that kink, I think, to allow the prototype through. Not the optimal line, but at the very least you can keep going. And Graham Sanders pushing very hard on the exit of the final turn. It's an interesting one, the final corner. It's got a nice wide curb on the exit, but the gravel is right there to greet you. Gonna get an Omologato replay. There's been an incident, a pass actually been made there, because Orson Meireles is now ahead of John Botifer for 6th place. Let's see how it happened. Was it a move down at the chicane? He pulls out and has a look, and then through he goes. Botifer saw him coming there, and you don't want to push it into the chicane, especially this early on.
No, once your opponent's far enough down the inside, I think it's wise early in the race to just yield that one. Bruno Carnero has been charging as well. All of these guys here. Meireles up 3, Botifer up 3, Carnero up 7 spots. So, very interesting to see.
Yes, indeed, Carnero.
I thought he was Brazilian, but that looks like a Spanish flag on the wing, rear wing.
Yeah, it looks like it there. Well, Bruno Carnero, well, his club is West United States, so the confusion deepens, I think. Carnero representing...
Certainly does not rule out Brazilian or Spanish heritage, does it?
No, certainly not. But he's representing really well out there, and the prototypes have made their way through cleanly on that occasion. Andrew Berry, though, make contact with Orson Meireles there into the left-hander, going through on the outside. Very minor contact, but it would have unsettled Meireles a little bit. Yeah, would have. Great to see the different makes racing well together as well. It's no, okay, we've got an Audi well
in the lead, but then being pursued by 2 Lamborghinis, and we're seeing it's not impossible for BMWs to work their way forward as well, and then there's a couple of Ferraris. So, yeah, definitely interesting to see that it's what car suits you, not picking which car is head and shoulders above the rest, I think. That's how it always should be.
Yes, indeed. The balance of performance, I think, has been very good in the GT classes. Dakota Fripp having to alter his line slightly as the battling prototypes of Harrington and Hubler make their way through. There's another move. Maxime Detilly continuing on his recovery, trying to make his way past Mark Noski, but again, that tidal line through the first turn means that he opens himself up for an attack on the inside into turn 2, and that allows the position to be protected from the car he's trying to pass. So he's going to have to wait again for an opportunity here. The McLaren, notorious in the past for being a very highly strung machine, but it is fast when you nail the setup, and Detilly, one of the drivers that has driven the McLaren quite a bit over the years. He drove it last season as well and saw some success in it.
Been keeping our eye on the forward progress of Johan Boysen, as we mentioned. Penalty carried over from last round meant that if he had qualified, he was going to start from the back of the grid anyway, so he preempted that one and didn't even bother qualifying. But he has moved his way up into the top 10 now, and that is 14 positions gained, both in class and overall, I guess, because we've had no retirements from the prototype class. So 14 positions up. And I think the real important number there, knowing that he finished on the podium last round, is that he is how many seconds off third place? About 20 seconds off third place at the moment.
Well, if he can repeat what he did at Watkins Glen and make the tyres last a long time, put a fresh set on right at the end, there's a fair chance that he could advance through to that podium position, making up that 20 seconds. But we will see. There's Beauregard a bit compromised into turn 2. Boysen had to back off slightly into there. It's very close between these two. Boysen on the verge now of getting himself back into the top 10 in GT. It's been quite the recovery for him from starting from the back of the grid. And again, I can't stop looking at that Team Tortuga livery. Super clean. I love the way the shapes work with the lines of the car, and the color scheme, obviously, one of the highlights there. I think it works really well with the secondary lights on the bumper as well of the BMW M4.
Certainly seems to, and those lights, sort of the nighttime racing lights, same for the upper element in the prototype field, where Tyson Meyer has finally got himself ahead of Graham Sanders, and critically with a very, very quick lap as well. So they've all got this sort of endurance lights turned on in this fog. It includes the Lamborghinis as well, and those sort of front quarter lights on the Beamer.
Yes, indeed. Well, on the verge of getting a battle here for second in GT3, the two full send cars of Spencer Kostovich and Tristan Iglesias coming together as Boysen makes his way past Rigger, but not without going off the track at the chicane. That's going to grant him a slowdown and put Rigger back ahead of him. So, first mistake we've seen there from Johan Boysen tonight. See if he can minimize those mistakes from now on. But it's easy to do there at the final chicane. It's a fast entry, and if you get just a slight bit of understeer, if you brake just a little bit too late, you're way offline, and the gravel trap is your new best friend.
Mystery deepens on the Zach Hubler car, because I've put on my investigative glasses, and all the biographic information I can find here says he doesn't even have a dog. He's got 3 cats. Who is the dog?
Who is the dog?
Who's the dog?
Help us. Help us, please.
There's no name given for the dog. And No other clues.
Are we sure that's a dog and not just a really fluffy cat?
I've seen a few cats and I've seen a few dogs.
Okay.
And if it was a cat, which one of the three would it be and why are the other two left out? That would be an even bigger mystery.
Yes, actually, it would. Oh, goodness. Jesus. The more you think, the more you have to think.
Well, it's just a curse, Reese. It's a curse.
It is. It certainly is. I know how it feels. As Boyson on the verge of getting back past Bo Rigger once again for 10th in GT. Same situation as it was last lap. Boyson right behind Rigger and trying to go for a move at the chicane. Will it work out for him this time? Look at the way the draft works there for Johan Boyson. He has got that car set up for great straight line speed and he's ahead of Rigger before they even get to the braking zone for the chicane. So that's Boyson back into the top 10. Next goal, top 5, then potentially podium.
Absolutely, still a long way to go, but that is forward progress for the minute for him. And still, with the overtake included, faster than all of the cars up the road from him until you get to the podium places. So he's doing that top 3 pace at the moment. And you don't doubt that when you see how many times you've cut to him and seen him making moves and continuing to push forward.
Yes, indeed. Noski and Detilly together in the Mercedes arena. Slight bit of contact between the two of them. Detilly a little bit unsettled. He's going to try and hold it round the outside here. But, just taking the wider line and shutting off Detilly's advance there. As they make their way down through the S's section. Mark Noski really making life difficult here. Detilly backed up quite a bit there in the right-hander. Had to cause Mike Amade just behind to lift off. So I think Detilly getting rid of that pressure from behind. Now he can pile the pressure on the Geodesic Lambo.
Yeah, a bit of a check-up there that happened earlier in the lap. They continue on. McLaren always decently strong in a straight line. Up the hill, I wonder if the stability at the rear is not as strong as the Lambo, but he's bouncing all over the curbs, having a look any which way.
Yeah, taking that wide turn into the right-hander, coming onto the back straight. Seems to have worked for him in terms of straight line speed, starting to gain again on Mark Noski, but not close enough to make a move into the chicane. Noski safe again for now. We'll see what happens though down in the Mercedes arena, because we saw them side by side there on the previous lap, and Detilly has a nice long start-finish straight to take advantage of his McLaren's power and slipperiness. A twin-turbo V8 in the McLaren versus a naturally aspirated V10 in the Lamborghini. And that's huge fuel saving that we're hearing there from Maxime Detilly. That probably explains why he hasn't gotten past Mark Noski quicker than we thought.
Yeah, interesting to watch. Here comes battle in the prototype class. Harrington's been caught again by Zachary Hubler.
Yeah, and they've got Nelson Yester just up ahead of them as they're going wide as Connor Harrington. Able to maintain the momentum, though, and stay ahead of Hubler. And coming up on a GT here on the exit of Turn 2. Never the simplest thing to navigate, but both of them managing to get it done. And both of them running roughly the same line, so neither of them actually getting advantaged or disadvantaged from that encounter with the GT. But have a look at Hubler, so aggressive through the fast left-hander. Omologato replay. We're going to take a look at David Browning and John Derrick here. What happened to John Derrick? Oh, well, there's David Browning having a problem in the left-hander. Adam Crane had to back off massively to avoid a incident there. Have a look from his perspective. He goes through on the McLaren and then just catching the grass on the right-hand side was David Browning, and Very good incident avoidance there from Crane. Part of being a prototype driver is just being ready to jam on the brakes and back off through any corner at any time if something like that happens in front of you.
To gain some deceptively coloured grass and gravel on the entry to that particular corner. It's not green like the rest. It kind of looks like it could be slightly paved, or you could drive over it, but you cannot. Tyson Meyer has caught Adam Crane with all of that, though. Meyer is turning it up in the second part of his stint, as Mario Norris going to take a look down the inside of the beleaguered Browning.
Yeah, staying wide in turn 1, though, is the Tortuga BMW, and slips back ahead again in turn 2. Defining feature of that part of the track, and bringing it in nice and early for the next left-hander, protecting the position once again. Tyson Meyer starting to advance on Adam Crane there. He would have known about that incident on the previous lap and trying to take advantage as much as he can. If he can get the gap to under 7/10 of a second, then he might stand a chance at a move with a draft down the straight.
Speaking of incidents, there's a very, very good reason today to try to avoid them, Reese.
Yes, there is, because we have an extra prize for the drivers. It's $25 cash thanks to Toking Australia for the most consecutive laps without an incident. And that's going to be difficult to achieve, I think, at a track like the Nürburgring. The off-track 1X is ever present on most of the corners around here, and sometimes the usable area of the track can be a bit misleading if you're not familiar with this circuit. Meanwhile, the pit stops starting to come around. We'll see at the end of the broadcast, or maybe a bit after, who has gotten the most consecutive laps without an incident. Carnero, the first car in the GT class, among the first to jump into the pits, and quite an early pit stop there. But it looks like he's going to be splitting that nice and evenly in 3 stints.
Yeah, it certainly does seem that in a 90-minute race, if he's gone just longer than half an hour, that is very clearly a 2-stop strategy. He's not really joined by anyone else on the lane at the moment, other than Jay Steffi, who's been there for 5 minutes, and that's presumably some long damage repairs going on. Hubler and Harrington, Double H.
Both making their way past GTs here, and got a bit balked in the Mercedes arena. The gap between them, yeah, just a little bit balked. Can Connor Harrington make his way past Mark Noski here? Yes, he can. Nice, clean exit from the both of those prototypes, but oh, this is going to be a bit borderline. Outbraking there, Zachary Hubler, as the Geodesic Lamborghini runs wide and is back in the clutches once again of Maxime Detilly. As oh no, that's the Lamborghini of Mike Amade spinning in the background there, and he's going to have to do a 3, 4, maybe 5-point turn to get going again, because he can't exactly reverse back out onto the track with, well, actually he can, now that the gap is there. Just goes right, oh no, oh no. He might have gotten on the throttle a bit too hard there.
Difficult to spin the car around sometimes in these traction control equipped machines, but that was, I guess, a little clumsy. You've got a revision camera in these things, but that is a little fast in reverse gear. I was always taught to never go faster or further in reverse gear than you need to.
Yes, indeed. Maybe a bit too aggressive throttle application there, but
not aggressive from Rossimano. That was a huge lift down into turn 1 that he engaged in the Lamborghini here. So again, 2 rounds in a row, there's a lot of drivers already thinking very long term on their fuel strategy.
Yes, indeed. And Mike Amade bringing his Lamborghini into the pits, presumably to repair that damage to his rear. So he's going to put himself on a 2-stopper now, is Mike Amade. You will have to think quite long term, because as we saw in the last round at Watkins Glen, the race really came alive in the last 20 minutes with the final pit stops. And that was drivers thinking long term, thinking about where they're going to be at the end, what kind of car they want at the end.
Precisely. We often see maybe one car or another is slightly better at the fuel save, but not by much. Never by a whole lot. That's one of the things that ought to be pretty easy to standardize in the BOP is the refueling times and the stint lengths. There's always just a little difference that might come down to the driving style of the car when you do let off just a little bit. Some cars will respond better to that than others.
Yeah, that's the challenge of racing in a multi-make series like the GT class we have here. But checking back in with our prototype podium, Tyson Meyer still advancing here on Adam Crane, and the gap closer than it's ever been between the two of them. Graham Sanders has fallen off the back of them as, oh, that was our GT class leader they were making their way through on there. Adam Crane having to back off slightly through that section, and Dakota Fripp just getting away with letting the prototypes through there. But just goes to show how easy it is for an incident to happen between the classes here. Dakota Fripp's going to have his eyes on stalks.
Certainly will. Both classes, the cars are more evenly spread out all around the track now, and it's not a tiny circuit here, but it's, well, not particularly long either. Even after they added the Mercedes-Benz Arena, still one of the shorter Grand Prix circuits. Real estate is real estate. The more of it you got, the easier the traffic becomes.
Yes, indeed. There's plenty of real estate down this very wide back stretch, but
it's all about location, location, location.
Yes, indeed. And what a location, the Nürburgring. Unfortunately, we can't see the castle, Nürburg Castle, in the distance thanks to the fog, but believe us when we say it is there in the background, just looming over this race we're seeing. And a fastest lap there for Marcus Deck on his 21st lap, 42.461. That is, actually, that's faster than Tyson Meyer's qualifying time. So Marcus Deck really asserting his dominance at the front of the prototype classes. Adam Crane and Tyson Meyer fight for the title of best of the rest.
More than any other car, these prototypes get faster the further you burn down the fuel. So at the end of the first stint on tyres, when the car is light, that is often when you do see the fastest laps. In the GT class, the tyres wearing down is a little more in harmony with the car getting faster as it gets lighter, and the lap times don't really get a whole lot quicker across a stint like they do in the prototypes. Here's Tilly. Is he done with his fuel saving? Well, at least for now. No rear window in that car. Jay, take note. We've had this discussion with him before. There's quite a few of these that the road-going version has a rear window, but for some reason the race car one has just a more solid firewall, bulkhead, whatever you want to call it back there.
Yes, indeed. Well, the battle between Crane and Meyer, they've got a nice clear track ahead of them. They can push as hard as they want, and Meyer bringing the gap down under 3/10 now. Have a look at this. This could be a move down at turn 1. If he can get in the draft and sort out the exit. Down the front straight they go for second in the prototype class, and the draft comes into effect now for Tyson Meyer onto the inside for turn 1. Crane lifting off early to let him go. So I think Crane just thinking about preserving his car for now. He's got Graham Sanders now behind him.
Yeah, later on I'll start punching the numbers on the fuel, for example, but I wonder if anyone in prototype thinks they can make this a one-stop race. I really wouldn't have thought so, but trust some of them to maybe try it. If they can get to, 6 more minutes from here, that's the halfway point of the race. If you stop there, well, you can try to make it a one-stop race. That's obviously what people are trying to do in GT. For prototype, I imagined it would have been a bigger stretch than that, but can't tell you too much about what the consumption's like on this GP circuit.
Yes, indeed. Well, we see that battle there. two Lamborghinis fighting very hard. And, Garrett Thompson and Mark Noski behind Maxime Detilly, looking very close, as well as we briefly checked in with Plummer and Ackles up ahead. Noski looking very aggressive coming down into turn 1, and Garrett Thompson just holding him off there as Detilly jets on ahead. He's finally free of the gremlins that have been plaguing him for the first half of this race. See what Detilly can do in that McLaren, but Mark Noski looking quite pacey here behind Garrett Thompson.
I hate to be the one who just always points out the weird stuff, but what is with that stolen submarine snorkel air conditioning vent in the Huracan?
Yeah, that's quite the positioning, I reckon, and I mean, good
I'd
thing.
like to believe it's actually the same in the Audi R8 Evo, but not the original version.
Yes, because the Audi R8 and the Lamborghini Huracan are effectively the same car underneath. They're based on the same platform. So we do have the original spec of the current model Audi R8 GT3, and this is the Evo version of the Lamborghini Huracan. So that explains the difference between the two cars there. But I mean, hey, if you want to get a jet of cool air in your face, you got to do what you got to do, right? It's engineering. What works is not necessarily the most pretty.
Yeah, dive. 2 pings, please, for silly on that one. Just the positioning of it, I don't know. It's one of those little things that's going to be within your line of sight in the cockpit all race long as well. Line of sight or line of fire right now?
Yeah, probably line of fire for Garrett Thompson as he goes defensive versus Mark Noski into turn 1. Not aggressive on the brakes is Noski, bringing it in a bit later for turn 1, trying the crossover, but with that big dip through turn 1, it's not going to work. Marcus Deck then, the first prototype to bring it in for a routine pit stop, and I think that is going to seal it as a one-stop strategy for these guys. Graham Sanders
still too early,
back
right?
to 4th. Well, maybe just a few minutes too early. I reckon we might be seeing Marcus Deck do a bunch of fuel saving in this final stint to get that extra couple of laps.
If he was 1 lap longer, I'd say, whoa, possible. I think that is still
Gonna be
solidly on
borderline.
the wrong side of the halfway. He's joined by Graham Sanders at the same time. It's Meyer, Crane, Harrington, Hoodler that all go a potentially very critical lap longer.
Meanwhile, another position being sought here for Johan Boysen, John Botefer, who's currently running in 6th place in GT as Sanders exits the pits in his prototype. Coming out with a couple of GTs as well, so that's going to be a bit difficult on his opening lap. Boysen in the BMW on the throttle. And we'll see the draft come into effect once again down the start-finish straight, and Boysen not getting the greatest of exits that time around. Unfortunately, not able to get alongside Botefer coming into the first turn, but you got to think it's only a matter of time. The pace that Boysen's shown has been immense as we see more GTs coming in for their pit stops. Jason Gotter is in the prototype, and Plummer, Ackles, Detilly, Thompson, Noski, and Derek all bringing their GTs in as Adam Crane regains the race lead. Tyson Meyer brings it into the pits. How is that going to affect the positioning of Tyson Meyer versus his teammate Sanders?
Well, Crane kept going. That's Crane and Harrington still going. I think they're, and Hubler here obviously as well, going for that one-stop strategy. But you wind it back to Marcus Deck, went 42 minutes on the first stint, then left pit lane with 47 minutes still to go. Where is he going to find 5 more minutes of fuel in the second stint that he wasn't able to find in the first?
Yeah, that's going to be the question. Maybe he's hoping that the traffic is going to play a part because, I mean, your fuel consumption does go down by virtue of making your way through traffic, just lifting off a bit earlier, coasting through a couple of corners, delaying getting on the throttle as Tyson Meyer exits the pit lane, and that's going to mean Graham Sanders might get back ahead of him into turn one. He will. He's got the speed, he's got the heat in the tyres, and Meyer, back behind his teammate there.
GT3 leader Dakota Fripp on the lane now. Corey McLemore continues very, very interesting, but this is almost everyone else left at a GT3 field. Johan Boyson going to continue on as well.
He's obviously feeling very confident with his fuel as Johan Boyson to be going this long. Daniel Towell has also brought his car into the pits as Connor Harrington, who's now briefly fighting for the lead here. Adam Crane bringing it in then at the 45-minute mark. He splits the race perfectly in two, does Adam Crane. And honestly, David, I would be surprised if the prototypes pitting now have to pit again.
I think that's very obviously their ploy, is get past the halfway point of the race, seal it as a one-stop. And it's question marks for Deck and Meyer and others.
Graham Sanders as well, another one of those slightly earlier pitters in the prototype class, but Marcus Deck is going to come through and regain the lead of the prototypes down the start-finish straight. And it's a repeat of Watkins Glen so far for Marcus, as, oh no, Adam Crane has lost out to both of the geodesic prototypes there. Meyer and Sanders, though, are very close together, so if they start battling, Adam Crane will be able to get right back onto them. Johan Boyson, Corey McLemore there in the fellow Team Tortuga BMW, a bit of a late commitment to the pits. We'll see if Johan Boyson decides to do the same thing.
You can get away with using all of that hashed line on your way to the pit entry. John Bodiff is going to follow him, and that's Bo Rigger, the only other driver I can see yet to pit. Here he comes to pit entry, and I assume, that's going to cleanse the field for GT3.
Indeed it is, and the field has been cleansed for prototype as well, at least for the first time, as Sanders and Meyer encountering Maxime Detilly down at the south end of the circuit. That's made things a little bit awkward for them once again, and this is a repeat of what we saw at the start of the race. Meyer right behind Sanders and looking very aggressive. It seems that once Meyer gets behind another car, the aggression dial gets turned all the way up, and they will have to be careful, because Adam Crane is still lurking in the background. Now with the field cleansed, with the pit stops complete, it's time to go for a very quick break here on SimSpeed TV, but don't go away. We've still got half of this race to go. Who will have to pit again is the big question. Let's see what happens and who is going to get these podium positions in the Geodesic Omologato Championship.
There's a story on this island. History lives here. If you listen closely, you can still hear the echo of a Dino, smell the petrol of a Carrera, feel the grace of an LP. In those days, lives were lost and fortunes were won in the blink of an eye. It's no longer that simple in today's world. But on an island, it's almost as if time stands still. Honoring the past by racing into the future. Motorsport, it's in our DNA.
You're watching the Geodesic Omologato Championship Round 2 from the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. It's been quite the race so far, and quite a few question marks over strategy as well. seeing that a lot of the prototype field and the GT field are going for the one-stop strategy we're thinking, but there's still some question marks over who exactly is going to make it to the end. Once again, I'm Reese Gardner, and David Haynes joining me in the commentary box. Well, David, it's still quite the run here from Marcus Deck in the lead of the prototype class, but Graham Sanders and Tyson Meyer, looks like Tyson Meyer making his way through there. Adam Crane not able to jet up to the back of him as quickly as he would like, but Meyer, crucially, losing a bit of ground to his teammate Graham Sanders just up ahead in second.
That's what I'd noticed as well. I think we're starting to see a split take place here where Sanders is absolutely pressing on, knowing he needs another pit stop, and Tyson Meyer maybe still believes in the fuel save potentially.
Yeah, that is the question. Question mark over drivers like Marcus Deck, who brought it in just before the halfway point of the race, knowing that the LMP2s will take about 45 minutes to 50 minutes to drain the tank with the new spec of the car, decreased power, as that's some tight quarters there for Bo Rigger. He's got Connor Harrington and Zach Hubler for very close company. Harrington makes his way through on Zach Plummer up ahead as Zachary Hubler gets by Anthony Rossimano and Bo Rigger. And that battle is going to continue because Rigger's getting a great exit. Omologato replay then. This is a bit of contact for Anthony Rossimano. Right there. A tiny bit of contact between, I think, Bo Rigger and Zachary Hubler.
Very close quarters as they came through the Mercedes arena, and the fact that every corner goes back in the opposite direction of the previous one leads to that kind of thing. It leads to some interesting side-by-side battles through there sometimes. Probably also doesn't help the prototypes so much.
Yeah, certainly wouldn't. The number 148 of Anthony Rossimano still eking himself out there. And Bo Rigger was running in the top 10 at the start of the race, but's fallen off slightly in the first half of the race and then past the pit stops. We'll be looking to gain that position back very shortly. Tyson Meyer and Adam Crane are a bit closer together for third in prototype than they were before. Crane's starting to advance a bit here on Meyer. I think some traffic might have had something to do with that.
There was a scruffy lap not long ago out of Meyer that was about 2 seconds off his normal pace, about 3 seconds off his teammate in Sanders as well. So I didn't see what that was, but would imagine he got wrong-sided somewhere or had a problem that cost him a second or two.
Oh no, Adam Crane's had a big lock up there just behind Tyson Meyer at the southern hairpin. He's lost a bit more of that time. The prototype, of course, easy to lock up the brakes. There's no ABS on the Dallara P217. It does have traction control, but that is pretty much the limit of the electronic assistance the driver can receive on that machine.
And I'm yet to speak to anyone who likes the traction control in these prototypes, almost everyone trying to stay out of it. David Browning, this is a second stop after just 4 laps. So is that a straight drive-through? Is that for a penalty? Did you see anything come up for that?
No, I didn't see anything come up for that. It doesn't look like a penalty for him there. David Browning, of course, having a bit of a difficult race so far. We saw him have an off earlier and very slow to get going again. Maybe, well, it couldn't be an incident limit thing because the incident limit is very high. I don't know. That's an interesting one there for David Browning. Maybe a hardware issue. There's any number of things that could have gone wrong for him there, but either way, that's released Garrett Thompson, who he was battling with before, in the Lamborghini, in the Quasar machine. as Meyer and Crane continue for the podium in prototype. And Crane was looking very strong early on in the race. We're hearing that it was an incident limit drive-through for David Browning. The incident limit is 16, so that tells you how many incidents David Browning has gotten in that BMW M4, and he's not having a great time out there as Maxime de Tilly brings his McLaren in. That's a second stop for him.
Yeah, not optimal. I wonder if that could also be related to a little too many adventures.
Let's have a look here at Tyson Meyer. He lost the spot to Adam Crane, and that's how it happened. Bit too much curb on the inside coming up behind the GT, and that just allowed Crane to slip on through. Let's take a look at the onboard then. In he goes, catches the curb, has to back off, I think, because of the closing speed in the middle of that turn. And Meyer will be ruining that.
I think he was looking for the Ferrari to hold line and track all the way out, and then it didn't quite, and that sort of forced him to check up a little more than he wanted.
Oh, hello. I think there might be another layer to that incident limit drive-through for David Browning, because Garrett Thompson has been given a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. Perhaps there was a coming together between the two of them, or it might be for a separate incident.
No, I believe it was at the carousel hairpin at the far side.
We'll have to consider what lap that happened on. It would have been perhaps lap 26. We're hearing. I'm going back and checking to see what happened. It looks to me like Thompson and Browning didn't quite clatter each other.
Remember, I caught something on another screen out the corner of my eye.
Well, either way, Garrett Thompson is going to have to bring that in pretty soon if he wants to escape the wrath of the stewards. You do have a limited amount of time to execute a drive-through penalty, and if Thompson wants to serve that, he's going to have to serve it at the end of this lap, I would feel. As he's just gotten the official black flag from race control as Garrett Thompson. Tough times in the midfield in GT3 for sure, as Andrew Berry and Jason Gotter just about to come together here. Jason Gotter getting held up on the exit. Sorry, that's Berry getting held up on the exit by Bruno Carnero. That's allowed Jason Gotter to jet right up to the back of him. And this is for the last position in prototype. Still a good points haul here, as only goes up to 9th place. Remember, we saw a few more prototypes at the previous round, but it is Daytona weekend, so a lot of drivers are putting their focus on the iRacing official Daytona 24, which also uses the Dallara P217 and a couple of the GT3 cars.
Yeah, the GT3 options for that being the BMW and the Lamborghini. In this one, looks like Berry has a lap more fuel than Gotter, so that could also be critical a little bit later on. I've also been seeing Graham Sanders, well, maybe not this lap, but catching Marcus Deck out the lead as well. So you remember it was all crazy in the last 5-10 minutes at Watkins Glen. I think we're shaping up for the same in the prototype class, because if Deck went 24 laps in the first stint, how is he going to do 27, almost 28 potentially in the final stint here?
Deck might be in danger as we take a look at the incident between Garrett Thompson and David Browning. Hopefully this is the one. We're correct in assuming that this is where the contact happened, coming down into the fast left-right sequence.
I think it's the hairpin. I've got a feeling it's the hairpin.
Alright, so we're hearing that Garrett Thompson got an off-track incident at this location on the circuit, so this might be it, and aggressive into the hairpin. No incident there through that corner. Maybe it happened a bit later in the lap.
Regret being so confident so early.
Okay. This is a bit of a mystery there. I think we're going to have to get it confirmed with race control where exactly that incident happened and who it was with. But Orson Meireles and John Botifer, one of the closest battles in GT right now for 7th and 8th. Botifer has held on very nicely in this race. Kept it consistent there in the top 6 to top 8. Orson Meireles also putting on a stellar job there, as I've heard Maxime Detilly requesting a tow from race control. Something has happened to him there. He was stopped at the exit of pit lane. What happened to him there? He just came to a stop when he exited the pits.
Your guess is as good as mine, but I did hear some talk he was having problems for the start of the race.
Technical issues.
Yeah, for his steering wheel or something, potentially.
Righto. Well, unfortunately, that might be a retirement for Maxime Detilly as Botifer and Meireles continue to push each other to the limit. Slightly better exit there for John Botifer. Got on the throttle beautifully, and he's going to carry that draft down this back stretch. Not going to be a move down at the hairpin, or is it? He has a look. Oh, pushing hard, almost getting into the back of Orson Meireles, but it looks like that look ultimately disadvantaged John Botifer, losing momentum through the chicane.
Interesting now within the final third of the race that even though some of the drivers were a little aggressive at the start, now I think a little more justified. And look at some of that fog starting to clear, some of the sun starting to come out as well.
Yes, we're able to gradually see more as Marcus Deck and Graham Sanders. Marcus Deck down there in the background, and Graham Sanders going for the move on the GT. Oh, that's a bit awkward there for Graham. That's Zach Plummer that he's trying to make his way past, and going for the crossover on the inside. Jesus, oof, that's very close on the turn in. I want to say, though, I was looking at Marcus Deck on the previous lap, and he made a slight mistake at the chicane. Pushed a bit too hard and just ran over the curb, so we might have to keep an eye out for Marcus Deck in these last 25 minutes of the race. Fatigue might set in.
Very much could do. BMW versus Lamborghini. War Turtle Racing taking the option of just painting the whole front of the car black.
That also works as, up the inside goes John Botifer. That's going to give the advantage to Meireles again. Then a traction on the outside becomes the inside for the next turn, and there's Marcus Deck making his way through on them. Very close together, the BMW and the Lamborghini on the run up to the chicane. Can Botifer have a look and complete the move this time? No, he just elects to stay behind, stay on the racing line. Meireles, though, got a bit compromised in the second phase of that chicane and running wide in the final turn. Botifer being given the advantage once more. This could be a move down at turn 1.
Absolutely it could. Lamborghini not looking a particular slouch in a straight line. Definitely didn't coming up out of the Schumacher-esque. The presence of the prototype down the inside makes it not great timing to send down the inside. Might force the BMW a little wide though. Still searching around.
Taking the slightly tighter entry into the left-hander in the Mercedes arena too. Botifer very confident in the front end of his car. But Morales with the advantage on the exit of that sequence. So this battle is at a bit of a stalemate right now, and unless there's a mistake from one of them, I don't see much changing in the next lap or so. Got a problem here for Spencer Kostovich. He looked a bit slow. Whoa, that is quite the big off there for Spencer. He was running in 3rd place in GT, but now back to 4th. Something happened to him here at the Schumacher S. Was it contact with the prototype? Oh. Hello, that was... oh, goodness me. There we go. A bit of confusion there with Nelson Yester letting the prototype through in the Schumacher S. That turned him around.
There's no malice here, but this is not the first occasion that everyone else isn't sure what Nelson Yester is doing. Remember, it caught out Tyson Meyer as well. They're just... They'll catch, and then they're just not confident that which way Nelson is going or if he's holding the line.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It looks quite awkward there for the prototype and for Spencer Kostovich as well.
Adam Crane just had the same problem.
Yeah, that he did, and it looks like John Botifer has made his way past Orson Mireles. Back up into 7th place as we ride on board with Orson. Catching up to the Lamborghini in a straight line, but nothing doing down at the hairpin. And race control has given us their thoughts on that incident with Nelson Yester. No further action. Looks like they deemed it just an awkward coming together. Little miscommunication between the classes there.
Yeah, so it looked 11th and 12th. Rossimano, Rigo. You remember, I think it was Rossimano we were riding with earlier in this race, and he had a lot of fuel save going on in the first part. He's got 1 lap less of fuel on board than Bo Rigger at the moment, though.
Oh, another incident there. That's Bruno Carnero now with some damage to his left-hand side. Looked like a bit of contact with the BMW down at the hairpin of Orson Mireles. Botifer is through on him as well, but that's interesting. I wonder if Bruno was involved in an incident a little bit earlier in the lap. Let's take a look at the Omologato replay and discern the truth of this. Carnero, very aggressive up the inside there of Mireles, so that explains that.
Yeah, it does. Might have been a bit of a late move there.
Tyson Meyer back on the rear end of
And
Adam
I
Crane.
think this is the battle between the top 2 cars that can make it to the end without an extra stop. I mean, just keep an eye on how they're driving for this last 20 minutes. I don't think Meyer wants to actually be ahead of Crane until a little later on.
Yeah, you won't want that. You want to try and stay behind the car in front until the last possible moment, not just for the sake of fuel saving, but I think also for the sake of not leaving yourself open to an attack. My general philosophy is you want to try and leave it as late as possible to make a decisive passing move, because then there's less time for your rival to come back at you. But Tyson Meyer looking very clean, looking very aggressive here behind Adam Crane.
These guys are 13 seconds off the lead, as you can tell on the top leftist screen. We have seen from some people having served drive-thrus that a drive-thru is 22.5, 23 seconds. So you add just a couple seconds splash of fuel to that as well. I think these guys are very much within the pit window of Deck and Sanders. if those two need to stop again, which is certainly far more likely than Crane and Meyer.
Yes, indeed. So keep an eye out on those top 4 positions in prototype over the next 20 minutes. It could go either way. Could this turn out to be the battle for the lead that we're watching at the moment? In terms of the lead, in GT, Dakota Fripp having no troubles at all. Once again, it's a repeat of Watkins Glen for Dakota. It's not much pressure from behind and just cruising on his own. Spencer Kostovich was 5 seconds back from him before that incident that we saw him having before. And Tristan Iglesias is just making his way into the turn before as well as Carnero comes in. That might be for a incident limit drive-through. Yeah, just touring through the pits and away he goes. People not having much luck with incidents here.
No, they're not. I don't see a race control decision on that one being a penalty they've assigned and decided on. I think it's just automatic and, of course, easily racking up a couple incidents if you're going to make door-to-door contact with someone.
Yeah, you've got to be careful around a track like this, in a series like this, as we look at Rossomano and Rigger, who, once again, fighting for last
Dramas
position
for Garrett
in the top
Thompson
10.
again. I think that's interesting. There might have been some contact with Crane and Meyer there. So your top 2, I reckon your contenders for the top 2 in this race, one of them's made contact.
Yeah, it looks like it happened on the exit. Meyer tried to squeeze through on the outside of Garrett Thompson, coming out onto the back stretch, and that's what spun him around. We'll get a view on that pretty soon. And here is the onboard from Meyer. You see Garrett Thompson in the Lamborghini up ahead. Well, Adam Crane made his way through very nicely. Actually forced Garrett Thompson to stay tight, and Meyer thought that he would do the same. Tried to sneak through on the outside, but there was just no room there. So that may be a penalty incoming for Tyson Meyer.
Pretty torrid race for Garrett Thompson. Lifted and sent. They got some spare tyre bundles there beside the track if they need them to fix that one up. I went to a go-kart track a couple weeks ago, Reese, where all of the tyre bundles were used supercars Dunlop slicks.
You're right. Were they
expecting to see like $30 some other used road car tyres, and somehow it was all supercars tyres. I was like, what? Oh, okay.
They got the fine stuff. Like stocking Wagyu beef at the butcher's.
Almost all of them have probably done like 5 laps or something before that becoming their new life.
Just sitting and observing and hoping that a cart does not come careening towards you. The life of a tyre. Well, it looks like Anthony Rossomano has dropped off the back of Bo Rigger there. And so that battle for 10th might be at its end. Bit of reduced pace running there from Anthony. Maybe the fuel is starting to come into effect. Having you just push a little bit less. Johan Boyson, on the other hand, his charge is continuing. He's up to 6th place and looking to get into the top 5 again here versus Daniel Towell.
The Boyson back, and they're looking for trouble. Closing up on 5th place here in a BMW versus BMW little battle. Boyson, it was crazy. He managed to work his way up through the field like he did, and then still went very long on the pits on the first stint on the fuel. Well,
I think that's all part of working towards the end goal of this race. You know, he pits a little bit later, he has a fresher car, more fuel in the tank, he's able to push a bit more as Bruno Carnero comes back in for, looks like it's going to be a scheduled second stop here for Bruno. And showing that the two-stop strategy probably didn't quite work out for him there. The gap staying consistent between Daniel Towell and Johan Boysen at about a second.
Yep, certainly is. But then once he gets within the second there, the slipstream might help him in a couple places, particularly the back straight. That's Bo Rigger going a little slow, and you can see he's lost a position because it's 10 on his number board and 11th on Rossimano.
Yes, well, Anthony Rossimano then into the top 10, and be interested to know what the cause of that was, because looked like quite an aggressive lift there from Bo Rigger. Oh, he actually ran wide coming into the S-bend beforehand, and it's the same thing that we saw David Browning do a bit earlier. Let's have a look at Bo Rigger here. Just gets on the brakes a little bit too late. The front end doesn't want to cooperate, and then out into the gravel he goes. Rossimano advancing forward, and Rigger just pushing off wide. That allowed Rossimano straight through.
Looked like the rear not cooperating, because then he had some big steering inputs to try to keep the rear as the rear behind him and the front in front on his way through there as well. That can be a characteristic of the Ferrari as it burns through the tyres. A little more tail happy, a little more aggressive on the rubber.
News from race control: the incident between Tyson Meyer and the GT of Garrett Thompson has been decided for now. It's going to be a post-race review for Tyson. We still might have a penalty coming his way for next round.
And you recall Boysen was a post-race review last round that ended up in a grid penalty for the following race. So I think more times than not, or maybe it's about a 50-50 that the post-race review does result in a penalty for one of the later rounds.
Oh, we shall see. Looking at the gap, though, towards the front, it looks like Marcus Deck is really starting to get on the fuel-saving train, because Graham Sanders is catching up to him. The gap now under 1.6 seconds, as you can see.
So even if the earlier stop for Deck doesn't force him into a second pit stop, it's clearly hurting him on track. He might even lose that position on track, even if he doesn't need the pit lane for another splash of fuel. But that's bizarre, because Sanders pitted the same lap as Deck.
He did. Sanders also, we're hearing, had a 4 second shorter stop than Marcus Deck. So, if anything, we'd consider him to be more in trouble concerning fuel.
Yeah, there's only... I just can't fathom quite how that's going to play out at the moment. I really want to say I believe Deck and Sanders are going to need a second pit stop the way they're going.
Well, we'll see as we take a look at the move for 5th place for Johan Boysen in the draft. Down the straight, making his way past Daniel Towell on the inside into the first turn at the Nürburgring. Again, prime overtaking opportunity. And it's been quite the drive from Johan Boysen, as there we go. The question mark for Graham Sanders has become an exclamation mark, because he's back in the pits now for his second stop. What of Marcus Deck? We'll have to wait and see. Adam Crane and Tyson Meyer have well and truly gone past Graham Sanders now. They're in the first sector. So keep an eye here on our prototype leader.
Also gives me a really good number to work with there for what the pit delta is like, because you remember he was a second off Deck, and he's gone and taken just shy of 10 seconds of fuel. Now Graham Sanders is 32 seconds off the lead, so even a 5 second splash of fuel is a total about 25 second delta. Crane and Meyer very, very solidly within that window from Marcus Deck.
Well, it's all on here now in the final 10 minutes of the race. The prototype lead could well be lost here for Marcus Deck if he can't bring this home on the fumes that he presumably has in his tank. So we'll keep monitoring him over the course of this lap, see if he decides to bring it into the pits or press on. In terms of lap times here at the Nürburgring, I would say that it's going to be about 5 laps to go when Crane crosses the line next, maybe 6 laps. And Deck there avoiding the pits. So he's able to
Touch and go.
Yeah.
My numbers are flicking back and forth between is it 5 or 6 laps to go at this point. I think it's 5, but I can't say with any certainty, and it might even depend on does Deck pit in the next 3 or 4, because that could change it, make it run a lap shorter.
It definitely could. Tyson Meyer, our director is questioning whether he has damage from that incident. I mean, you can see that the delta was increasing slightly there versus Adam Crane. Maybe Meyer with a bit of damage. He's lost a second on that lap for the incident earlier with Garrett Thompson. Remember, there was contact on Meyer's right-hand side, and we know how sensitive prototypes usually are to aero damage.
Well, he's loaded on all the extra dive planes, and that's where they are. The floor is aerodynamically sensitive, but so is the front and the rear clip on these cars. When you hit a GT car, those are quite solid. Definitely a heavier object than the prototypes as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone and lost maybe a little bit of top speed, or maybe, you know, the front of the car might be pushing a little bit if it's given up some of the downforce.
Well, Meyer is going to press on here, and Adam Crane continuing to advance ahead of him. Checking back in with Marcus Deck, coming up to the sports car chicane. Love how quickly the prototypes make their way through there, but Deck avoiding the pits again for one more lap. And
did 24 laps to the first stint. He's just finished 23 now. So if he's not in pit lane at the end of this lap, you'll know he's stretching the fuel longer in this stint than in the first lap. There's still quite a lot of laps to go if you're staring down that fuel number in the dash. And it is a good fuel number that you get in the prototypes. On the left-hand side of the wheel says how much fuel there is, and on the right estimates how many laps there is. And that number on the right-hand side that we can't see, but Deck is going to be able to see, says less than about 4, he'll know he's in trouble. Is that the clutch in? That's the clutch in.
Oh, here we go. Deck is fuel saving massively here. And I think for me, that's a clue that he might try to continue after this lap. Got some traffic up ahead of him as well. Pass happening between 2 GTs. It's Nick McLaughlin and Daniel Towell. McLaughlin, of course, a lap down on his GT class rivals. Towell and Boyson, the next cars up ahead here of Marcus Deck. Boyson hasn't exactly dropped Daniel Towell here. Oh, careful, guys. Boyson's going to have to back off a bit there to let Marcus Deck through. And is this going to be a stop? No, he is stretching. So this is going to be a very tense 5 minutes and 45 seconds.
His lap times have dropped off a second or 2 as well. That could swing it in the balance of the race going a little bit shorter. For comparison's sake, his best lap of 42.4. His lap he's just done a 46.5, 4 seconds off his best lap for Marcus Deck. Adam Crane is charging along by comparison.
Yeah, 1 minute 44.033 for Adam Crane.
2.5 seconds faster. If that continues, he'd catch him anyway, even if Deck doesn't need to pit.
Well, the intrigue begins once more for the win in the prototype class. Just keep an eye on that gap there in the top left. Over 10 seconds at the moment, but it's going to get smaller and smaller as the laps tick away. Daniel Towell and Johan Boyson continue to battle. We hear that Daniel Towell got a slowdown on a previous lap, and that's what allowed Boyson to catch up to him and pass him. And that battle looks like is going to continue, because again, Boyson has not dropped Towell. Keeping an eye on Marcus Deck, though. This little bit of traffic might help his fuel consumption somewhat.
Saw earlier that he had a couple of GT3s lined up in front of him, and he rolled out a little bit, only overtook one of them, and then waited till the exit of the corner to go for the next. Pit lane is on the right. It's Marcus Deck heading for it. Not today, but with 4 minutes on the clock, it's still definitely going to be 3 more laps before the checkered flag can get unfurled.
So, some of the most intense 3 laps of Marcus Deck's career, and Adam Crane facing a very tense 3 laps to try and catch up to him. Towell is back ahead of Johan Boyson, and then Boyson having a look up the inside into turn 1, but the title line compromises him slightly, and that allows Towell to stay alongside. Very close fight here for the top 5, and Boyson will have to be careful about how aggressive he is. Oh, that was almost contact between the two of them, but it looks like Towell saw him coming, and running wide, Johan Boyson to let him back through, as Orson Meireles and Zach Plummer bring their GTs in for their second pit stops. This is the point of the race where we're going to see those early pitting GTs start to conk out a bit.
Yeah, 4 GT3s on the lane now. The only prototype we've seen go for a second stop so far has been Graham Sanders. It does say that the fuel is on the edge for a couple of these classes. And maybe the tyres are also on the edge for the GT3s here as well, because they've been going almost 90 minutes and everyone took fuel only at their pit stops.
Yeah, of course, the tyres in the GT3s can last quite some time. As Mark Norsky brings it out there in 14th, Marcus Deck still on the fuel save game. Pit lane beckons, but he does not answer the call. 2 laps to go now for Marcus Deck in the lead.
Another pit stop for Jason Gotter from 9th in prototype as well. So how much fuel is he going to take here with 2 laps to go? 4 seconds, 5 seconds. It's already back in 9th. There comes Adam Crane with 7 seconds for Gotter.
And there is Zach Plummer making his way past Orson Meireles for 10th place in GT.
Both of them on their outlap. Both of them just took fuel and are going to go max attack to the end here.
Yeah, on worn tyres as well, with a bit of extra weight in the car. It's all on between those two. It's been a good comeback there from Zach Plummer. Remember, he suffered a few issues earlier on and starting to now drop. But Marcus Deck out of the chicane, or the Schumacher S, very high speed chicane. He hasn't got very long to go, and that fog is still extremely thick from far away, so I reckon trackside cameras only for the rest of this race. I tell you what, it's if Deck can pull this off, this has been quite a good measured drive from him to make sure that that this second stint has been extended as well as it has. It's going to be white flag for our prototype leader, and a very fine drive.
A few drivers definitely went 26 laps in the first stint. He's making it 27 now. Paint me surprised.
As we saw Hayden Gober jump out of the pits there. The battle between Towell and Boyson for the top 5 in GT continues. Oh my goodness. Boyson very aggressive coming into the braking zone. That's a car pitting just up ahead of them. And that's going to be John Sedlak bringing it in from 25th place overall for his last pit stop of the day. Connor Harrington and Zachary Hubler, they've not been able to leave each other alone all race, but again, Zach Hubler just not able to advance far enough forward to put a move on his rival. They've been locked in a stalemate of a battle for that whole race.
Tyres look like they're giving up a little bit for Hubler, though. Again, same in prototype class, where the pit stops have been fuel only, and sure, they can do 90 minutes, but you kind of need to think about what's going to be left for your tyres right at the end.
Well, final lap for Marcus Deck, and there were quite a few concerns over whether or not he'd actually be able to make it to the end without making a second stop, but turns out that was the plan for the one-stop strategy, and he's been able to bring it home. It's 2 from 2 so far in the Geodesic Omologato Championship for Marcus Deck in the prototype class. Another fantastic victory, and by a long way as well. And just behind him, Dakota Fripp is going to come home for Vendaval to take 2 from 2 so far this season in the GT3 class. Another excellent drive from Dakota Fripp, and I think it says a lot about Dakota's drive that we barely focused on him at all. He was untouchable.
Toll and Boyson have changed positions a couple times. Boyson's got a big run. Toll, you know, is going to defend this one to the chicane. Boyson's still going to have a look. Still got his nose down the inside here.
Oh, take it easy, boys. Side by side. Boyson might have one more lunge here at the final turn. Tries to go around the outside. Late apex for Boyson. He's going to try and get him at the line. Is he going to be able to do it? Contact side by side. Boyson off the circuit. And he finishes ahead of Towel.
I think Towel ran out of fuel. I think he ran out of fuel coming out the final corner there. Across the grass.
Wow.
Boyson has gotten to the line first. He did get squeezed a little on the exit there, but wow, that was... I mean, we didn't have anything like that for the lead of either class, but for 5th in GT. Bumping and barging and across the grass to the checkered flag. Wow.
Excellent finish there between Boyson and Towel. But Marcus Deck will be celebrating here. Another great drive, and Adam Crane will certainly be celebrating a second place in the prototype class. Here are your results. It was 9.7 seconds, the gap at the end, with Tyson Meyer completing the podium. Graham Sanders was in contention for the podium positions, but that second pit stop ultimately put paid to that dream. Connor Harrington completes the top 5, fending off the advances of Zachary Hubler, and Andrew Berry, the last car to finish on the lead lap overall. Hayden Gober and Jason Gotter rounding out our prototype field.
Yeah, those last 2 prototype drivers running out of fuel, needing a late pit stop. In GT3, though, Dakota Fripp grabs another win, 10 seconds ahead of Tristan Iglesias, whose teammate in Spencer Kostovitz couldn't quite keep up the fight in that one, but Corey McLemore for 3rd, Kostovitz for 4th, Johan Boyson in 5th, Daniel Tovel in 6th, as they crossed the line there. That was something. John Botifer in 7th, Bo Rigger in 8th. First of the Ferraris, I think, in the field, as the penalty has just come through for Boyson and Toll, that has rejigged that around and moved Botifer and Rigger up into 5th and 6th.
Wow.
So Johan Boyson, Daniel Tovel, both exceeding the incident limit between the final corner and the checkered flag, and consequently get the time added post-race while I'm trying to read out the results. There you go. Zach Flummer for 9th, Austin Myroles for 10th. Good luck with the rest of the field. I hope they stay in place while you call them out.
Yeah, I really hope so. It was Anthony Rossimano coming home in 11th, with Aaron Ackles in 12th, Mark Noski and John Derrick in the 13th and 14th positions, and John Derrick with a couple of spins. He'll be wanting to minimize that for the future. Bruno Carnero had to come in for a drive-through penalty and then a scheduled pit stop that put him down in 15th place. David Browning did not have the greatest of races either, coming home in 16th. Nick McLaughlin, John Sedlak, Garrett Thompson and Nelson Yester rounding out the 20 cars there in GT, with our retirement territory now completely consumed. Maxime Detilly and Mario Norris with Mike Amade, Jay Steffi, and Nicholas C. Hayes coming home, going home, rather. Those guys were not able to make it to the finish thanks to incidents, car damage, hardware issues, and the like. Well, that brings to an end the race for now, but we've got quite a few driver interviews to come on forward. The first we're going to go for is Mr. Dakota Fripp. David, you have got our GT3 winner.
Certainly I do. Dakota Fripp, back-to-back wins now for this season. And the scorecard at the end probably doesn't tell the whole story of the pressure that those frozen speed Lamborghinis seem to have.
Yeah, for sure. I know Spencer was keeping a pretty decent pressure on me early on, and then I tried to manage that gap to Tristan just towards the end. I mean, I did have confidence that I had under control. Just managing the gap with the fuel, because the fuel usage and saving fuel is a big thing for the series with how they set it up. So I was just kind of managing that gap when I could, when it came to fuel. But yeah, definitely felt the pressure from those Lamborghinis.
Not a lot of Audis, but still you take yours to the top step. Do you think you're going to be a little heavier for next round?
I sure hope not. It was definitely a hard race to win this time for sure. I'm the only Audi actually in the field, so that makes it a little more interesting for sure. With them trying to figure out the bop for it. But I mean, I think other guys had the options to choose the Audi if they wanted to after the first round, and they didn't. So that just shows that it's not. I don't think it's an overpowered car, compared to the rest in a huge way. There's still other options out there.
About the weather here, a bit foggy, bit cool to start off at the start of the race. Does the tire wear ever become a consideration in these 90-minute races when everyone's thinking about fuel?
A little bit. For the most part, I mean, the weather is so cold that you can kind of just push the whole way through and remain pretty close with your tire life, and as long as you have the right kind of setup underneath you.
And of course, the prototype cars have gone and lost 40 horsepower or so. Has that changed how quick they come up in your mirror?
Not really. I feel like it's the same kind of speed, definitely, when they're coming in the brake zones, dive bombing, or maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but yeah, definitely feels like the same car.
2 from 2, you must be pretty pleased. Who are you going to thank?
Absolutely. I'll thank Vendaval Sim Racing for all the support. I'd like to thank Draw Once, SimuCube, and Valco, the sponsors for the team. And thank you guys for bringing on a great broadcast, and Geodesic Racing for hosting the league and getting some excitement behind it. So it's been fun.
Dakota Fripp, GT winner from round 2 at the Nürburgring.
Indeed. And next we're going to go to second place in our prototype field. Adam Crane joins us in the number 10. Adam, welcome and congratulations on your second place. It looked like a pretty tough one. Once again, you were embroiled in a battle with Meyer and Sanders for the whole way.
Yeah, battling with Graham and Tyson is always a blast. They're pretty fair racers, so being able to race around people that you can trust to not overdrive the car or make a mistake just makes the whole experience a lot more enjoyable. Really tight battles with them. The strategy with the fuel in the race sort of added a little complexity, because I was trying to figure out as the run was going on whether or not they were saving and whether or not they were pushing. So it made for a really enjoyable race.
So was the plan to always go for that one stop?
Yeah, it was always the plan to go for the one stop. I calculated the laps out, and the setup that I had was quite good on fuel. So being able to make it on the one stop was definitely the strat. I saw Graham boxed for fuel, so I was really hoping that Marcus might have had the same thing, but no joy.
Well, ultimately, you came home in second, so another very good points haul here at the Nürburgring. How did you find the traffic? Because I did think that it was going to be a problem for some of the prototypes, considering how narrow this circuit is in some places and how quick a lot of the corners are.
Yeah, with the quick corners and the narrow track, it's really important that the GT drivers as well as the prototypes remain as predictable as possible, because being able to have an understanding of more or less where every car is going to want to position themselves just allows overtaking and being overtaken a lot easier. So, I mean, there were a couple hairy moments where I can understand drivers wanting to, help facilitate passes. But just like the age-old story of multi-class racing goes, you just sort of have to look after your own race and just be predictable and run the line that you're supposed to run. And I mean, I'm happy that I was able to bring the car home clean, and for a good P2 and good points.
Indeed, and next round is at Silverstone. How do you think you're going to go there?
Pretty good. Pretty good. The Nürburgring set that I ran tonight was actually based off of a Silverstone set, so I feel pretty confident.
Good stuff. Before we let you go, Adam, anyone you'd like to thank?
For sure. I'd like to thank Satellite Racing VRS. Awesome car today. Cy Andra and Alex Ellis did an awesome job helping out with the set. I'd like to thank obviously everyone that I was racing with. SimSpeed TV for putting on the broadcast, as well as my loving partner Jess and my parents, who will no doubt watch the video back. And a special happy birthday to my father, who just turned 61.
Happy birthday, Crane Senior. That is Adam Crane there, second in the prototype class. Next up, David, we've got second place in a GT class, Tristan Iglesias, with a very strong finish.
Hello.
Welcome. Got to ask first off about the choice for the Lamborghini. Obviously a very new car, but not that different from the Audi. How's it been treating you guys?
Pretty well so far. At first, we chose the Lamborghini because of how well it performs on tire wear and fuel. Though it just got a bit nerfed, so that hurt us a bit, but the other cars also got nerfed except McLaren, so in the end it works out. So yeah, pretty happy with the car choice.
And of course, I'm sure you get to do some work for the setup, for the testing with your teammate Spencer Kostovich. What happened for him that he wasn't quite able to keep up with Dakota Fripp today?
Basically at the start, I guess Dakota had a different fuel saving strategy. He was pushing a bit more at the start, and then he managed to save more fuel at the end. And sadly, Spencer had an accident with a lapped car on the SS, and yeah, luckily he didn't get any damage and was able to finish the race. But yeah, sadly, because I'm a bit sad because he could have had the chance to win the race, and yeah.
What kind of advantage do you get for potentially working together when you've got two teammates up the front working with the same model of card? Is it all from before the race with the setup and the practice, or are there any games you can play after the green flag drops?
We are always on voice comm, so we were talking to each other about fuel saving and stuff. But yeah, about setup work, he did a really good job this week at finding a pretty good setup for this round. Especially now that we have double work, because we're preparing for Daytona 24 as well. And yeah, it was a bit tough, but I'm glad we managed to have a good set in the end.
A lot of differences in the characteristics between Watkins Glen and here. I think Watkins Glen a bit faster, a little bit lower downforce. Kind of changes do you have to put on the car for this track?
Well, especially a lot more downforce, because at Watkins it's all about that straight line speed and, well, being somewhat stable in the fast corners as well. But here there aren't that many straights and you aren't as fast as at Watkins. So yeah, basically increased downforce and pretty much it.
Well, you stand on the podium. Unfortunately, your teammate misses out just from being able to make it a double Frozen Speed Full Send Racing podium. Anyone you want to shout out here on the SimSpeed broadcast?
Yeah, of course. I want to thank first my teammate Spencer. He did a really good job on the setup this week, and sadly he missed out on the podium because of that accident he had. And then my team, Frozen Speed Full Send Racing, pretty good guys, and I'm really happy with them. Thank you for everything. And yeah, I gotta thank you my partner as well, because he was watching the whole race, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for this magnificent broadcast, and Geodesic League as well.
More than welcome. We look forward to seeing you again for the plenty of future rounds that are going on.
Thank you.
Tristan Iglesias there, second place in GT here at the Nürburgring, and the final driver interview of the night is going to be Corey McLemore. Corey, welcome to the commentary box. You and your BMW, you had a bit of a quiet end to that race. You were on your own a lot of the time during that 90 minutes, but still, coming home in third, a great result.
Yeah, it's just a fortunate race for me. It was kind of boring, nothing crazy, no mistakes, so I was able to get a podium. It's nice.
Looked like the one stop certainly the way to go in the GT class, but how were the tyres looking for you towards the end? Did you really have to start babying them?
Yeah, the second stint was definitely completely different on the tires, especially coming out of the pits. The car just felt quite horrible. But as the later in the run, there was just no one around me, and especially when I saw that Johan had an incident and he was no longer, pushing and coming. So I was just taking it easy and just driving the car smoothly. So no issue with the tires.
How was the weather conditions affecting you as well? Because quite foggy conditions here and starting in the morning.
Yeah, the fog was different. We didn't practice with any fog, of course. And also the practice before the race in the session here was pretty dark, and that was really our only good experience with the other class. So it was a bit tricky getting used to the other class, and the dark was just another factor there to throw us a loop.
Well, going from the Nürburgring to Silverstone next week, in 2 weeks' time, what are your expectations for that round?
Like Adam Crane there, that the sets are very similar, so that's a little bit of pressure taken away from us. But I don't know Silverstone any better than I knew this track, but we just practiced a considerable amount this week, and it really paid off. Definitely have to thank the team members for all the practice sessions and helping me out and learning the track, and I expect we'll do the same thing with Silverstone.
Yes, well, Team Tortuga, it seems, still bringing the fight towards the front here in the Geodesic Omologato Championship. Anyone that you want to thank in terms of sponsors or supporters?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank you guys at SimSpeed for putting on such a great broadcast. I know everyone enjoys it. Thank Geodesic for putting such a good league together and keeping it clean and well organized. And definitely thank Team Tortuga. Johan, David Brown, and Nick Hayes, Angelo, Incendiary Unit there in the chat. He's always standing by and cheering us on. So thank all the guys at Team Tortuga, especially the guys that make the paint, Johan and Edu. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it is indeed a very nice paint. That was Corey McLemore from Team Tortuga, third place in GT. And David, that brings to an end proceedings for tonight in America, for this morning here in Western Australia where I am, and this afternoon where you guys are over east. What a round to start off that phase of this championship. I'm really looking forward to seeing where the rest of the season goes, because it seems like there's drama at every single round, and you genuinely don't know who's going to come away with victory.
Well, simply, I can tell you it goes to Silverstone in 2 weeks' time. But bigger picture, I mean, always these questions about the fuel strategy, about who's good when the track is cold, who's good when the track is hot. And Can the Geodesic guys in the prototypes put a good race together? Can Adam Crane find something extra to challenge Marcus Deck? And when will this sort of legacy that Deck and Fripp are creating for themselves eventually have to come to an end? Rome can't stand forever.
No, certainly cannot, but neither was it built in a day. We will see what happens at Silverstone in 2 weeks' time, which you can catch here on SimSpeed TV, live on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm Reese Gardner, David Haynes, alongside me in the commentary box, with Jay Kennedy making everything happen behind the scenes. It was Marcus Deck who came home with the win in the prototype class, in this round 2 of the series, and Dakota Fripp in the GT class coming away with victory. Don't forget, you can use the code SPEED2020 when shopping on the Omologato website, and you can get a free silicone wristband with that. Big thanks to our series partner, Omologato. We want to give a big thanks to all of the drivers for showing up and putting on a fantastic show. We want to thank Geodesic Racing as well for putting on this series. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, bye for now, but certainly not forever. We'll see you at Silverstone.
This is fantastic. This is GT Racing right now. He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to Oh, my God. Oh, big crash. Oh, my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh, my God.
God, what?